All right, so of course we had a bantamweight champion fighting last night, but we had what should have been a bantamweight title fight going on last night, and we had bantamweight contender fights going on last night. We had bantamweight prospect fights going on last night. The bantamweights showed out for UFC 250. Very entertaining stuff all around. Now it looks like Aljamain Sterling is. I mean, granted, he should have already been the number one contender, but here he is. Now he is officially next in line for the winner of Petr Yan versus Jose Aldo for the vacant bantamweight title. Fellas, are we feeling this? Are we feeling Aljo here? Am I alone on an island right now?
Well, I'm sorry, I'm not on that island with you. I think Aljo looks phenomenal. I think he's by far the number one contender. Again, I'm with you in terms of I think it should have been Aljo versus Yan for the belt over Aldo. I love Jose Aldo, but he lost, however close. You want to talk about the ramifications of a close split decision loss, and he gets a title fight. We'll see. I hope it's a good fight, but I think it's more about selling than anything else. So I think Aljo should have been against Yan for the belt in the first place. That being said, Yan to me just looks too much like a monster. Ever since I first saw him come in the UFC, and a little before that too, he's always looked like a prospect that just keeps getting nastier and nastier in terms of his ability to just march people down, throw just extremely aggressive, throw crazy amount of significant strikes, do damage. I think Aljo is going to be a great test for him, and I'm not saying Aljo can't win because I think it's going to be a close fight, but if I had to put money on someone, I'd say Yan just because he's looked like an absolute monster. But that being said, I'm super excited for that fight, and props to Aljo, and if I'm wrong and he wins, then he's proved me wrong before, so who knows? I think it's going to be an extremely fun bantamweight fight. I'm glad that we're getting it. We'll see. I really think it could go down as one of the best bantamweight fights in history. Knock on wood here, but we'll see how it goes. Personally, though, I have Yan. I think he's just too good.
Yeah, I mean, we're kind of no disrespect to Jose Aldo, but just kind of dismissing his chances, which isn't fair. I mean, like, he shouldn't be in this fight, but he has a very real chance of winning this fight. So let's throw that out there. But now, as far as Aljamain Sterling is concerned, Michael, I'm going to pivot to you on this one. Do you agree with me, or are you wrong? Aljamain Sterling is the rightful number one contender.
Well, that's a tough one. I will tell you that I am on your island. It may be Fight Island over in Abu Dhabi. With 115-degree weather. I am on your island, and I'm with you. I'm on the Aljamain Sterling train. I mean, that guy is amazing. But yeah, let's go back to this. What a night for the bantamweights at UFC 250. You've got the Sugar Show, Sean O'Malley, with one of the best walk-off knockouts we've ever seen. Done. Period. End of sentence. Then you've got Cody Garbrandt with one of the best knockout walk-off KOs we've ever seen. Boom. End of story. He looks great. Back to his championship form. Then you've got, and let's not forget, Alex Perez with a calf kick KO over Jussier Formiga. That's a massive win for him. Just a terrific win for that bantamweight as well. And then obviously the Aljamain Sterling win, the submission over Cory Sandhagen. I'm with you, Ant. Let's get Sterling versus Yan for the belt. But I think one guy that we have neglected to mention, and I think that's a failing as far as how important and how good he is and how pivotal to the division, and that's Marlon Moraes. This is someone who's knocked out Aljamain Sterling. So his only recent loss was to Cejudo for the belt. I think the fight that should be happening is Yan versus Moraes. That's the fight that was scheduled for Kazakhstan before COVID took over and Cejudo retired. So I'd like to see Yan versus Moraes, and the winner gets Aljo, rather, not Aldo. So yeah, that's basically where I stand on the issue. I think if they're going to do Yan versus somebody and it's not Moraes, let's do Aljamain Sterling. But if you look at Aljo's resume, I mean, he has got to be the number one contender for the belt when the next fight comes around.
Definitely good points there, said by both except for you, Pat. We disagree with. Now, Let's go ahead and keep
Wait,
talking.
wait. Just to clear that up, were you saying Aljo was the number one contender, or Aljo was going to win?
Aljo was the number one contender.
Oh, then we're on the same island. My bad. I thought it was Aljo going to win the whole belt. Totally.
Good. Very easy.
But Mike, you see that, right? You saw like we convinced him. He knew what he was, and then he tried to.
No, of course.
See what you're doing.
And it's okay. That's the point of a discussion.
We're just very convincing men. So
just for that, Marlon Moraes is the number one contender. Keep going though.
Valid case.
One thing I don't think I have to convince either one of you on is that Sean O'Malley is the real deal. Like this is very, very serious. Knocking out Eddie Wineland, the inaugural WEC champion. I think one of the lighter weight class fighters that doesn't get his due credit. I think history is going to look back on his career a lot more fondly than some fans do now. But to be able to handle Eddie Wineland like that, the setup with the feinted uppercut to the cross, beautiful stuff right there. What do you want to see next for Sean O'Malley?
I mean, now this is terrible because you do need to convince me that Sean O'Malley is the real deal. And here's why. O'Malley's amazing in terms of the people he's fought so far. But let's remember where Eddie Wineland is right now in his career, right? I mean, he will always go down, as you said, as one of the most underrated fighters. He's not going to get enough credit where credit is due. But this is also a guy that, with the O'Malley loss, is 1-3 in his last 4. His last win was against Grigory Popov, who hasn't really turned out to be the type of prospect that the UFC had hoped for. And then before that, he had dropped fights to Alejandro Perez and John Dodson. His last win before Popov was Takeya Mizugaki, who I believe just retired recently. So again, I think O'Malley is the real deal, but I don't think I'd like to think that, I suppose, but I don't think he's been tested enough yet. I don't think you give him that KO over Wineland and you say, okay, he's there. He's ready to go. It's all good. I think right now you need O'Malley against a top 15. I think that's the real test. If he does something like that to anyone in the top 15, even if it's number 15, if it's a more established name, then I'm 100% on board. He is the real deal. But I mean, it's one of those things where it's hard to see if you look at O'Malley's resume. It's not like he's gone through a bunch of ripe up-and-coming contenders who are really, people to be feared in the division. You had Andrei Sukumtoth, you have Wineland. He's had amazing performances. But I'm not 100% convinced that he's there yet. Give me one real current test in the top 15 or a prospect that's really on the rise, and I am 100% bought in and sold. But I can't give it with Wineland's recent career struggles. I can't quite give it to him yet.
All right, so Mike, I'm going to toss you a different question now. Is Cody Garbrandt back? Is the former bantamweight champion once again a threat for the title?
Yeah, I definitely think that Cody Garbrandt's back, and obviously there are flaws in his striking and flaws in his overall game that go beyond just, he gets emotional, bites down on the mouthpiece, and gets into brawls. There are some structural issues there, and that's one of the reasons why he's losing fights, in addition to the emotional counterpart, which I believe is 100% accurate. But like we see with the patient Justin Gaethje, a patient Cody Garbrandt is a terrifying individual. I mean, Raphael Assuncao will go down as one of the most underrated fighters in the sport's history. And Garbrandt there's no other way to say it. He detonated that right hand on him. I think Garbrandt's immediately back in the title mix, especially given the way the UFC views him as a commodity. Obviously, very big fan base for Garbrandt, lots of attention on him. So, yes, I do think he's back, and I think he can make waves in the division once again. And, of course, one of the most exciting fighters on the roster, so absolutely someone to tune in. Pat, I do have an answer for you on Sean O'Malley's next fight. By the way, I am sold. I am on that train. I am on that bus on the highway. I am on the bandwagon for Sean O'Malley. John Dodson, let's have him fight. John Dodson ranked 13th in the current rankings, and Dodson's one of these guys who is the perennial test. I mean, you'll remember He was the big step up for Petr Yan. He was the big step up for Nathaniel Wood. This is a guy who the UFC is content to use as the wily veteran to the upcoming untested prospect. And I think O'Malley made a statement with that win over Wineland. It was, I am here. I'm ready to go. Let's continue to give him step ups, give him someone like Dodson. I'm also content to see him fight some of the other guys at the bottom of the division, or excuse me, the bottom of the rankings, like Chito Vera, Song Yadong. Those are really exciting fights. Now, I tend to lean away from the young gun versus young gun and let the prospects build. But obviously, yes, definitely in favor of another step up for Sean O'Malley.
And then also too, let's factor in he might have pissed off Dana with his demands for more pay. So we might end up seeing him with a really tough matchup. We might see him against, I don't know, a Jimmy Rivera or somebody like that who's a lot more experienced and presents a lot of stylistic nightmares. So I'm very curious as to what the UFC is going to do with him next. But he's definitely someone that we need to be paying attention to. In
O'Malley. I think a really fun fight would be O'Malley versus either the winner or the loser of Ray Borg and Merab Dvalishvili.
I'm not mad at that.
I personally would love to see O'Malley versus Dominic Cruz. I think that would be a heck of a fight to see where Cruz is at. You know, he came back, obviously struggled against Cejudo a little bit, but you know, let's see if he's still got it. And that's a real step up for O'Malley. So I kind of like that wily veteran versus young prospects. Let the young eat the old, or the old eat the young. That's
but at that point, if he were to beat Dominic Cruz, even if it were a close decision or something like that, you can't dial it back at that point. At that point, then it's like, okay, you're a number one contender fight after that. You can't go backwards. So you know what? Maybe.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe. No. Here's one that's going to mess y'all up here. And this is probably going to fire off the comments. Uriah Faber.
Ooh, I don't know. That's the thing, though.
Stylistic nightmare, older guy.
Yeah.
Star power.
That could be a fight.
Well, no. I mean, Frankie Edgar. He's talking about making that 135 debut.
But again, Frankie's so close to the top because he's coming down as an active 145 contender.
Yeah.
That you get kind of that Cruz scenario where if he wins, now he's a top 10 guy, period.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
But dude, I hope things go well for O'Malley. He's a really fun fighter to watch. I mean, his striking is masterful. And what little grappling we've seen from him, obviously he competed at Quintet Ultra, amazing event, and he looked sensational. I mean, he was snatching that front headlock. I mean, he looked good. But yeah, O'Malley's a really fun fighter, and I can always get behind someone who's streaming Fortnite and Warzone because I'm a degenerate.
You with my Warzone skills because I'm super trash. All right, fellas.